Hello everyone and welcome back to Bass Series. Today we will talk about the EQ of a bass. Now setting up a correct EQ is a huge part of our sound, especially for slap bass. Today we will talk about that. Now if we try to think really simple and generalize things, there are two approaches for a slap bass tone. First is like a Stanley Clarke, Mark King, Les Claypool type of sound. And the other end of the spectrum is more like a Marcus Miller and Larry Graham type of sound. Today we will try to talk about both of them. Now we will just talk about the EQing section today, but we still need to talk about your bass of choice. The woods and the pickup of your bass will affect your tone quite a lot, and you might be trying to generate a tone which may not be possible with your bass at all. Now if you have a look at the Mark King's or Stanley Clarke's bass, we can immediately see that it has darker kind of woods and humbucker soft bar kind of pickups. Just by looking at these basses, we can guess it's going to produce a dark, maybe a mid-range dominant and percussive type of sound. On the other hand, if we have a look at the Marcus Miller's and Larry Graham's bass, it's quite the opposite. It has ash and maple woods, kind of brighter woods, and single coil pickups. We can immediately tell that, just by looking at these basses, it's going to produce a mid-range scooped and brighter sounds. So let's say your bass type is better for Stanley Clarke type of sound, and you want to go for it. Even by tweaking your EQ just a bit will go a really long way and you will probably get better results. If you do the opposite, you're gonna have to tweak more with your EQ settings and that will make your sound more synthetic. Now cutting is one thing and I think cutting with your EQ generates better results in the long run. But if you try to add frequencies that are not present in the original character of your bass, that will make the sound more kind of artificial. Now I have both kind of basses, a jazz bass with a bright kind of woods and single coils, and a Musicman bass, Musicman Bongo, with kind of darker woods and humbucker pickups. Now let's record them first and I'll try to explain an EQ along the way. Now before we start, I'd like to say that you can EQ yourself in many ways. If you have an active type of instrument, you can use the controls from there. You can use your amp, you can use preamp pedals, anything works. But today we will use a plugin, ProQ to be exact, because it's easier to visualize things in a plugin in a spectrum. Let's have a listen to our jazz bass first. Now the bongo. Let's have a look at the spectrum. Our bass is in the left hand side, mid-range is in the middle, and the treble is on the right hand side. If you have a 4-string bass, your lowest note, which is the low E, the open E, is around 41 Hz. If you have a 5-string bass, your lowest B is around 31 Hz. I didn't play anything lower than low E, so I'm just going to cut through with a low cut around 39 Hz. Let's correct that. There we go. Now, the bass side, the left-hand side, is our fundamental frequency. Whatever you do, the bass has to be present in your mix. Let's have a listen. If I boost it, see your bass gets fuller, richer in the low end frequency. If I cut it, you basically suck the life out of it. Let's have a listen to bongo. Let's cut around 40 Hz first. Here we go. I like to boost just around 5 dB in both of the instruments. Maybe a little close to 10 dB. Jazz bass. Now the mid-range is going to be distinctive for our tone. We can actually divide the mid-range in 3 separate parts. The left hand side of the mid-range is called low mids, mid-range, mid-mids, and the right hand side of the mid-range is called high mids. If I boost all the mids in a jazz bass with a low Q, if I cut it, it kind of gets smoother, closer to the Marcus Miller type of sound. Boost it and cut. Let's have a listen to Bongo. If I boost mid-range, if I cut it, you know, for Bongo type of sound, leave it on the darker woods and mid-range dominant tone. I like to boost the mid-range around 500 Hz, like 7 dB, and get to really punch all of it. Let's get back to jazz bass. Now the treble side is on the right hand side, as we said before. Treble kinda gives us the brightness, the bite of our slap bass sound. If I boost it, the tone gets brighter and it bites more. If I cut it, it gets darker. Bongo. Now, if we EQ the jazz bass, if we want to get Marcus Miller type of sound from our jazz bass, what we need to do is boosting the low end and boosting the high end just a bit, and scooping the mid-range. That type of EQ is called scoop. If I boost mid-range, it gets muddier with a jazz bass. It can be preferable depending on the mix, but if you want that solo bass, soloistic type of sound, cutting the mid-range works better, to my ears at least. This kind of EQ is also called a smiley face. You know, these are the eyes and these are the mouth. There we go. With Bongo, I like to boost the mid-range, as I said before, just a bit. And maybe boosting the low end and the high end as well. Now without EQ, do the same thing with jazz bass. I forgot. Without DQ. With DQ. Maybe boost the low end just a bit. Alright, that's about it. If you have any more questions, you can hit me out in the comment section below. See you on the next one.